What's up, it's Marco, Sage of Soccer. I just want to do a quick video as the College Cup, the NCAA Tournament Final Four is coming up, and I just want to talk about some of the prospects around that. Now, I know college isn't exactly the most exciting place when it comes to youth prospects, but we've got some good players from it before, Miles Robinson being the biggest example, I'd say. So I just wanted to go through some of the guys who are going to be playing this weekend and just talk about them. So the teams are Washington going up against Georgetown, and then we got Notre Dame playing Clemson. So, yeah, starting off with Washington, we got a couple of really strong players. We got Teves. He comes from the Seattle Sounders Academy. He's a first-team All-American last season. He scored a hat trick in order to get Washington to this point in a 2-3 win. So, yeah, really strong player. He's a midfielder who can pop up with some goals. He's a junior this year, but due to eligibility, it's actually his senior season. So he's eligible for the MLS draft, I'd assume. So, yeah, he's somebody keep an eye on. Looks like he'll be a strong player. He's also a candidate for the Herman Trophy, which is the soccer equivalent of the Heisman. So, very strong player. Next, we got left back Charlie Ostrem. He's another junior who is a senior. He was a third-team All-American last season. And, yeah, he's a really strong left back. Good going forward. Good defensively. And someone maybe we should keep an eye on. I mean, left back isn't the strongest position on the national team. Anthony Robinson, he's been kind of iffy. George Bello, Sam Vine's not exactly making the backup spot their own. Jonathan Gomez, we don't know about him. Kevin Paredes, we don't even know if he's going to end up playing left back. So, yeah, definitely somebody to keep an eye on. Any left-footed player really coming through. But, yeah, someone who could be really strong. Next, we got another junior-senior striker, Gio Migliotti, out of the Sounders Academy again. And, yeah, pretty strong striker. I mean, doesn't do anything special, but pops up with goals on a very good squad. So, yeah, he's another guy to look out for. Next, we got a sophomore junior instead of a junior senior. We got Christian Soto. He's actually been called up into a USA youth camp before. Another really strong player. Good player on Washington to watch. And next, we got another guy. This is Ryan Saylor. He's another guy who's the candidate for the Herman Trophy. But I'm talking about him last as he's a defender and he's a super duper senior. Not only is he's a sixth-year senior. He was at Washington while Obama was in office. So I don't think his ceiling is going to be very high, but at least in these few games, he's going to be a really solid player. And lastly, at goalkeeper, we got sophomore junior Sam Fowler. He's from the Seattle Sounders, another former youth international. And yeah, pretty strong goalkeepers. The goalkeepers are going to be a pretty good position. We got a lot of good goalkeepers coming out of college. Zach Steffen, Matt Turner, two good examples. So yeah, now we're going on to Georgetown, and we got a couple good players to talk about. First, this guy's a junior, but again, they have the extra year of eligibility, but they're actually listed as juniors. Dante Pulvara, he's another guy who's one of those Harmon candidates. He was an NCAA champion when Georgetown won the tournament over Daryl DK's Virginia in 2019. Yeah, he's first-team All-Big East this year. He comes from the New York City FC Academy. He's a huge midfielder, looks really strong, and yeah, definitely somebody you got to look out for. Next, a defender, we got Sean Zawadzki. He's another guy who's an NCAA tournament, NCAA champion, first-team All-Big East. He comes from the Columbus Crew. And yeah, very solid player, very good defender, and someone to keep an eye on. Next, we got the goalkeeper. Their goalkeeper, Giannis, he's Greek, as you can tell from his name. So he's a very good player, but I'm not going to talk about him too much. Next, sophomore midfielder, Chris Haggart. He comes from the Seattle Sounders Academy. That's going to be an interesting storyline going to that game. Because a lot of Seattle players on that Washington team, I mean, obviously geographically, so maybe he'll know a couple of them. That should be interesting. Next, they got Will Sands. He's from a former USA youth player. He was at some youth camps. He was also part of that NCAA tournament winning team. He comes from New York City FC, and if you're saying New York City FC and Sands, he's Will Sands' twin brother. So, yeah, that's kind of interesting. Yeah, very good player. Kind of interesting as he's listed as a forward, and he had been playing that before, but he actually won first-team All-Big East as a defender, and he seems to have switched his position there. That's where James plays, so yeah, kind of interesting. And lastly, for upperclassmen, we got Zac Revere. He's an NCAA champion, another guy on that squad. And yeah, pretty solid right winger. He's going to be going up against Charlie Ostrem, so that could be something fun to watch. Now for freshmen, we got this defender, Kieran Sargent, no relation to Josh. I feel like I have to mention that from the Sands. But he comes from Houston Dynamo's Academy, and he's been one of the best freshmen of the year, especially when considering only American players. Yeah, he's been very strong, and yeah, he's been starting for them, popping up with assists, popping up with goals. and definitely someone to look out for. I'm wondering if Houston might try to call him in as a homegrown player next year. I'm not sure if they can do that, but definitely someone to look out for. And two other guys, Rowan Dillo doesn't play too much, and Cole Parate, just because I've talked about him before, but not going to play too much. Now, we're on to Notre Dame, and Notre Dame against Clemson. It's going to be a pretty good game, ACC clash, and yeah, a lot of players talk about it with Notre Dame. So first, two seniors. We got Jack Lynn. He comes from the St. Louis Academy. He was first-team All-ACC and a really dynamic attacker, leading the line for Notre Dame, one of their best players. And a center back, Philip Quinton. He's huge. I think he's 6'6". He was third-team All-ACC. Not exactly the greatest prospect. This is Notre Dame team is a lot more sum of its parts. They also have this guy, Paddy Burns, but he's Northern Irish. Yeah, Paddy's, of course, he's from Ireland, so not going to talk about him too much. But a couple of freshmen who are worth mentioning. This guy, Neto, he's English from Derby, though, so not too much there. Kyle Gunenbacher, he's also from the St. Louis Academy. He'll get a couple minutes, but the two main guys are Josh Ramsay and Matthew Roou. Both of them made the All-ACC freshman team. They're both former youth internationals. Josh Ramsay comes from the FC Dallas Academy. Very strong defender. I think he's a left-footed center back, so someone who could be really valuable should he truly develop. Might be interesting if he gets a homegrown contract, because I feel like he might have the ability to. And Matthew Roou, he is, well, as I mentioned, All-ACC. He doesn't come from a big academy, but something I noticed about him, he's got a really good futsal background. He was a youth international in the futsal side of things. So yeah, very good in closed spaces and a very strong attacker, period. Those two guys are someone who could be a part of that US U20 World Cup coming up, and some guys to keep an eye on. So now lastly, we're on to Clemson. And Clemson's kind of hard to talk about because they have a lot of good players for internationals. This guy Oscar, he's a Harmon candidate. He's Swedish, though. And they got a Senegalese trio of Justin Malou, Hamady Diop, and Ousmane Saylor. I'm not too sure if they're going to be eligible for the national team. Oscar, I'm pretty sure he won't, but the Senegalese guys, I'm not sure. They went to Montverde Academy, like all of them, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, it might be like a Darlington Nagby situation where they have to stay in the country long enough, but I'm not too sure. Though Justin Malou is a Columbus Crew draft pick, so that's something. But I just want to mention those kind of guys kind of separately. And for their actual players, we got a left back, Charlie Asensio. He's previously made the All-ACC team, not this year. He comes from Atlanta United's academy. Goalkeeper George Marks, he just stopped a couple of penalties in a shootout win for them against number 1 Oregon State. He's a former USA Youth International, second-team All-ACC. Someone who probably will end up in the MLS. I'm not too sure if he'll start, but I mean, we're casting a pretty wide net with these guys. Then two super seniors, Quinn Mcneil, third-team All-ACC, decent midfielder, and Callum Johnson, another super senior, transfer from Boston College, from the New York Red Bull Academies, and he looks like a pretty good player, like a lot of technical qualities. I'm not too sure if he will be able to translate to a pro level, but he does look pretty good. And then two freshmen to talk about, Adam Lingard, just because I mentioned him before, DC United, USA Youth International, probably not going to play, but one guy he will play, though probably off the bench, defensive midfielder Elton Chifamba. He comes from the Columbus Crew. He's a former USA Youth player. I could definitely see him getting into the USA U20 squad eventually. And yeah, he's actually a real prospect mentioned with a lot of other guys. I see him as someone with a really high ceiling and someone to definitely watch if you decide to turn to this. So yeah, that's it for the College Cup. I mean, I know it's not the greatest level of competition, and I'm talking about some guys like I could see them becoming a backup MLS keeper. So I can understand if you're not too excited, but we do get stars from the college ranks. Miles Robinson, mentioned him. And yeah, it is something that does happen, so maybe give it a watch. If it's behind a paywall, probably not, but hey, something to definitely keep an eye on. That's all I've talked about today. See you.